Back at it here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. Rany Jazayerli, Soren Petro with you. Ready to talk some Royals baseball with you. Exciting times. Is the Royals offense actually pretty good? You know, they've homered in 13 straight games. That's almost a club record. Rany has spent 7 days compiling a massive amount of data, ready to hit me over the head with why Jordan Lyles continues to be a major part of the mindset problem, the economics, the dollar problem of the Kansas City Royals. I can't wait to take my beating. Not a good day for me to defend Jordan Lyles as we record the podcast, as we stream live. If you're catching us via the recording, we stream live on Sundays at 10. I'm in some trouble tonight. Are we ready to call Bobby Witt the shortstop now and in the future? How about Nick Pratto? As he made first base his own. Brady Singer got it right the last time out. Is it all fixed with Brady Singer? We talk about it all right here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to Kaufman Corner, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions: project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, with paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more info. Now, here's your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Kaufman Corner podcast, which I think is one that Rany has been drooling over, been waiting on here.
No, Soren. I'm an optimist.
You're an optimist?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how optimistic you are, Rany. Let's be honest about it.
I'm optimistic that I'm going to be extremely angry for the next hour.
Okay. That'll be interesting. I look forward to what it is that's going to come up next. Let's dive right in. I know I mentioned the offense first, but let's get to what it is you've been working on for 7 days. Disappointed, frustrated that I wouldn't say that Jordan Lyles was the end-all, be-all as to why Royals baseball is failing. You have compiled a list that will prove that he is indeed what is bringing this franchise to its knees. Did I phrase that correctly?
I think you may have oversold that a tiny bit. Not 7 days, maybe 7 hours since his most recent garbage start today. But I did want to. I feel like we cannot have a podcast after he goes out and gives up 7 runs in 2 1/3 innings after the Royals had a 4-1 lead, and once again blew the lead and then some, and lost the game that the Royals had plenty of offense to score. Should have won the game. This is, early in the season, the Royals weren't scoring any runs. It really didn't matter how bad he was. In the last 4 starts, the Royals have scored at least 6 runs 3 times in the last 4 Jordan Lyles starts. They've lost all 3 of those starts. That's not a fluke. They've lost every single game he has pitched this year. They are 0-9 when Jordan Lyles takes the mound. He's got an ERA of, I think it's 7.14 at the moment. He leads the majors in runs, earned runs, home runs. If it's got the word runs in it, Jordan Lyles leads baseball in it. And what frustrates me is not that he's pitching this badly. It's that it's not his fault. This is who he is. I'm not mad at Jordan Lyles for getting paid $17 million for the next 2 years. Good for him. Get that bag. I'd rather him have the $17 million in his pocket than John Sherman. John Sherman's got more than enough money for him and his children and great-great-grandchildren to live on. Jordan Lyles maybe didn't. Hopefully, and if he's seen the way he's been pitching, almost certainly he's saving every dollar he can in this contract because he's probably not getting another major league contract. But good for him that he got the money. But this was, I mean, I'm not going to say I expect to be this bad, but close. I mean, he came into the year with a 5.10 career ERA. How many guys with an ERA above 5 get multi-year contracts?
Well, but we've been through this. Now, I thought
Right.
I thought you were coming at me with this. Is like
I'm just setting up, dude. This is just the appetizer, okay? Like, what I want to, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because what you threw at me was, we talked about this the last time, was the innings that he threw. And yes, he made 30 starts and 32 starts the last 2 years. He threw about 180 innings. Where are the Royals going to get those innings? Who else could the Royals have signed?
Well, that's overstating what I said. My point was, give me the names
Yes.
that you would go for, their contracts, who it would fit in, and that Jordan Lyles is irrelevant because this team isn't ready to contend. They simply need anyone to eat innings.
Which is true. My point was that they didn't have to give $17 million to get it. But here's
Okay.
what I have names. I decided, I'm like, let's actually look into this. Who else could the Royals have signed? So let's start with the name that we actually talked about in the offseason, because there were rumors the Royals had interest in this player. And so I think that's a relevant place to start. But I want to set one ground rule down before we start. I start throwing names. If I mention a name and I mention a contract, you cannot come back and say, well, that guy never would have signed with the Royals. Because if that's the response,
then let's get to the offense. Because just going out and just rattling off names, Jacob deGrom was available. Jacob deGrom is not signing with the Royals.
I'm talking about guys who got the same or less money from
but I think you fundamentally that herein we're back at what the arguing point was, and I'm not going to spend very, very much on it because we've done it. Like this idea, like that's the difference between the analyst sitting in the chair and analyzing and the general manager sitting in the chair and GMing. Is you deal in theoreticals, they deal in realities. You don't have to deal with all the other different variables that are involved in it. You just focus on one thing and say, look what was possible.
I understand.
Theoretically, everything's possible.
Yes, but also
theoretically, one bullet hits 17 people in a car in Dallas, Texas, right? From a book depository. They can make it happen in a vacuum. They show where the bullet all these, all that, the theory is you have to actually apply it. At some point, rubber has to meet the road. And somebody has to be willing to sign their name. So,
I didn't expect us to get into Kennedy truther theory here on the Kaufman Corner tonight.
Yeah, but you know what but you understand.
I understand, but yes, but the flip side of that is if any name I throw out to you, you're like, well, he wouldn't have signed with those without knowing what happened. You're right. I can't say for sure, but you also can't say for sure they wouldn't. How about this? How about I restrict it to pitchers who signed with bad teams? Fine. Okay. You want to say that the Royals couldn't have signed. The first guy I was going to mention was Seth Lugo. Okay, that was the guy that the Royals were rumored to be interested in. Let me just mention him briefly. He signed with the Padres. If you want to argue that he never would have signed with the Royals because the Royals aren't good and the Padres are good, that might be true. It might not. I don't know. What I do.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. For the first bad team you've chosen, the Padres.
No. I'm starting with him just because I was about to mention his name. He's not the bad team. I'm giving you the counter example. So if you want to argue Seth Lugo wouldn't have signed with the Royals, fine. I just want to point out that Seth Lugo signed with the Padres for less guaranteed money, 2 years and $15 million, than he would have. Than the Royals gave Jordan Lyles. I also want to point out that, and this is, you're going to laugh, but this matters to athletes. The income tax bracket in California is 13.3%. In Missouri, if my research is accurate, the highest income tax bracket is around 5%, 5.4% last year. I think it's going down. So I'm just saying, Seth Lugo signed for less money, but fine. The Padres are good. Maybe all he cared about was winning. How about Rich Hill? Rich Hill signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Pittsburgh Pirates are above 500. Yeah, they're above 500 this year. Pittsburgh Pirates lost 100 games last year. They had a worse record than the Royals. I don't think you can come up with a scenario to justify to me why Rich Hill would never have signed with the Kansas City Royals, but he had signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He got 1 year and $8 million.
Yeah, I mean, the reason you could
Okay.
give is the same reason I pointed out last time, that why San Diego Padres were getting guys, because people looked at the farm system and said this team is ready to contend. So I mean, if you're going to do bad teams,
I don't know anybody who is predicting the Pirates to contend. They are surprising everybody by contending this year. Nobody at the beginning of the year. I don't know anybody.
Yeah, but I
People were
mean,
saying the
you
Royals
said,
might contend.
just give us the bad teams.
Idiots on the show. Okay, look, Rich Hill signed with them for 1 year and $8 million. He's pitching well. They also signed Vince Velasquez. All right, 1 year, $3.125 million. Both of those guys. Velasquez in 7 starts so far has a 3.05 ERA. Rich Hill in 8 starts a 4.35 ERA. They are competent major league starters. All right. Let me give you one more name. You want to have fun with this. A team even worse than the Pirates. Trevor Williams. Trevor Williams signed with the Washington Nationals. Please do not try and say that somebody thought that the Washington Nationals were going to contend this year. They lost 107 games last year. They suck this year. Trevor Williams got a 4.25 ERA in 7 starts. He signed for 2 years and $13 million. Again, guys who signed for less money, guaranteed. The first 2 guys, the Pirates guys, signed 1-year contracts, which is great, because the thing about signing a guy for innings, the second year is unnecessary, because let's say you go out and you need innings next year, there's going to be a whole new batch of free agents next year that you could sign for innings. So the idea of, well, the Royals needed to get innings for 2 years. No, they needed innings this year. You can make up new innings on the fly every winter. There's always going to be the next Jordan Lyles out there. And then, but my favorite example maybe is if you had asked me in December, before the Royals completely shocked us by signing Jordan Lyles, what major league pitcher resembles Jordan Lyles' career more than anyone else over the last decade? What pitcher profile fits with Jordan Lyles closest? I would have said Dylan Bundy. Remember Dylan Bundy? Like Jordan Lyles, came up extremely. Dylan Bundy was a first-round pick. In fact, the Royals probably would have taken him instead of Bubba Starling had he been available. He got to the majors at age 19. Jordan Lyles got to the majors at age 20. But both of them have been very, very mediocre for their entire careers. All right, Dylan Bundy's career area was coming into the year was 474, but he had a okay, decent average season with the Twins last year, a 4.89 ERA in 29 starts. All right, do you know what major league contract Dylan Bundy signed for this year? The answer is you don't, because he didn't. He signed a minor league free agent contract with the New York Mets 5 days before the season began. And he's still sort of working into shape in AAA. He hasn't pitched well, but the guy didn't even start his season until 5 days before opening day. Dylan Bundy got no guaranteed money. How the hell what was it about Jordan Lyles that justified $17 million? If he had signed for 1 year and $6 million, we would never have this conversation. Be like, well, that didn't work out. Just like we're going to not spend any time on Franmil Reyes' contract. He got 1 year, $2 million. He sucked for a month. They cut bait. Good for the Royals. If it had been Dayton Moore, Franmil Reyes probably would have been around until August. They realized that it wasn't working out, and they moved on. But it's the amount of money, and it's the amount of time. And my concern is he's pitched so badly when we talk about innings that he's going to provide this organization. Either the one thing I'm absolutely confident about with Jordan Lyles is either his ERA will have to come down, or the number of innings he's projected to pitch this year will have to come down. There is no way he's going to throw 170, 180 innings with an ERA of 7. Not even the Royals are that suicidal. Because at some point, the value of the innings becomes counterproductive if the guy is so bad that the other players in that clubhouse know. I mean, I have to think today was kind of a tipping point for some of the guys in the clubhouse. For the third time in 4 starts, they scored plenty of offense and still lost. They scored 10 runs 2 starts ago for him, and they lost 13-10. And it's hard for our front office to tell the young developing talent, the young developing hitters in this lineup with a straight face that we care about winning. We care about, it's not just about, development when they've got a 32 or 33-year-old pitcher who is a guaranteed loss every time out there. At some point, something's going to have to give. And he's not giving you innings if you have to designate him for assignment. So I just think that he is not going to be in the rotation by the end of this contract. He might not be in the rotation by the middle of the contract. And in the grand scheme of things, that money, whatever, it's gone. You're right. He's not taking the place of anybody else, but it is a sign of a thought process of giving him that money that is concerning me so much. How does a front office that thinks Jordan Lyles is going to get that kind of money from anybody else and is willing to give it to him? That is just such a major red flag to me. Is this a front office that can evaluate not just talent, but the economics of the sport to understand some types of players are so disposable, are so replaceable, right? We talk about replacement value, that they're not worth giving, big bucks to. That's it.
I have nothing like Jordan Lyles is a wart on the ass of the Royals. I have nothing in response. I mean, it is like I don't get the fascination. Like I said last week, I mean, it's 17 million. You acknowledge the man has the money to give 17 million. So sign. Why? To me, the one thing I heard there is then go sign Dylan Bundy.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted the innings, if they had signed him like Dylan Bundy to a minor league deal and he made the team and he sucked.
Yeah, I mean,
it's more it's a reflection of the thought process. I'm worried about what this says about the Royals front office moving forward. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the roster spot. If you get some a higher draft pick, wonderful. At this point, it doesn't matter. But
I mean, listen,
are they going to make this mistake again? Are they going to make a similar mistake when it actually matters in the future?
So what would be your course of action? Fire him before he has the opportunity to make that mistake?
I'm not saying one decision is not going to justify firing, but when you are evaluating the job performance of a certain JJ Piccolo, I mean, this has to be a red mark on his resume, and he has to make up for it somewhere else.
There's no way it's a positive, right? I mean, nobody's looking at a 7+ ERA. And I mean, somebody brought up, like, if you looked at the FIP on some of these guys, Rich Hill's FIP is 501. That's way better than Jordan Lyles.
Right.
I will grant.
I'm not saying those guys they're just not horrible.
Yeah, but again, I think that I don't think these are the decisions that are going to determine whether or not JJ Piccolo can general manage this team. I think these are decisions that are made simply to, I'll quote Danny Klingscale, facilitate the game. And did he squander $3 million too much this year? $7 million, $8 million. Do they eat the contract and cut him and he squandered $17 million? I don't know. We're going to find out. I mean, it's trending that way, right? It's not getting better. But at the end of the day, Jordan Lyles or Rich Hill or Dylan Bundy or any of the names you mentioned will not be on the mound for the Kansas City Royals or, frankly, any other team when they are contending for a World Series. None of them.
I agree. These are the green M&Ms in the hotel room bowl. Do you know that reference?
Well, no, go ahead and explain.
Okay.
Yes, but not everybody does. I'm sure.
Right. I believe it was Van Halen, the band when they toured. They, had a long list of demands for the hotel, the concert tour. I believe it was wherever they were playing at any given night. They had a whole list of demands they needed before they would take the stage, and on that list was that in their backstage they had to have a bowl. Maybe it wasn't their hotel room; it was backstage. They had a bowl filled with M&Ms with the green M&Ms taken out, and this for years was reported as a story of how what divas rock stars are. I'll look at Van Halen; they don't want the green M&Ms in the bowl, but no, that's not what it was. It was actually a very brilliant thing that they did, which was they'd walk in backstage, go to the bowl, make sure the M&Ms were there, and make sure the green M&Ms were taken out, and if they were, then they knew, okay, everything else on the list was probably the people that we entrusted with this list of took it seriously enough. They cared about the details.
Yeah, their attention to detail.
Right. The attention to detail was there. And if the attention to detail is there with the M&Ms, it's probably there with the big stuff. This is the green M&Ms. Does it matter in the long run? No. Is it a sign that the Royals may be making bigger mistakes or will make bigger mistakes or more consequential mistakes in the future? Yes, I think it is. The M&Ms are spilled all over the floor here.
Right. I don't know that they can be all over the floor because I don't think the one Jordan Lyles move is big enough. There are a few M&Ms there are a few green ones in there. I'll give you that. Like, it's not, listen, again, it is not a positive. It is not the the selling point for JJ Picollo asking for a contract extension, or to inspire John Sherman to believe that things are headed in the right direction. I grant you that. But I will say again, and then we'll flip the page. The first year of a general manager is often the worst. And I'm going to tell you, he spent the entire offseason hiring people. And the personnel part, I think it's left behind. And go look at Brett Beach's first draft. It starts with
Breland Speaks. Yep.
Breland Speaks at the top. I mean, it's not great. I mean, that's the issue. There were misses. All general managers in that first year, when they're putting together their staff and people, I look at it time and time again in sport after sport, they're behind. They're behind on the personnel side because they're trying to line up their people. It is a difficult spot to be in. So if the expectation was that, if he'd have probably been better personnel wise if he had not changed anyone, but we would have all lost our mind, right? If you had Mike Matheny GMing. And so when you go around and you interview everybody and you try to get all the thoughts, you're going to leave some stuff behind. I will grant you, it's not good. He needs to be better. In years to come, I think he will be better. Will he be good enough to be, have his name in the Royals Hall of Fame? Will John Schultz, will he be good enough to hang flags? I don't know. I think he will be better. He needs to be a lot better, though, right? And so that's not, that's the issue that's going to be here. And
okay.
And well, so
then we can table the discussion of Jordan Lyles for the rest of the season, at least until he suddenly starts pitching brilliantly for a month, and you want to tell me that I'm an idiot. And the tables have turned. How the turntables?
Listen. You started this. He has a 5 career ERA. Brilliance is not within his grasp.
Well, this is my thing. I'm like, what's the upside here? It's not like he throws 99. It's like he's going to figure it out tomorrow. But
I will tell you. Look. And I'll come back. I'll give you something if we want to talk about today's game as we record this. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Proudly, most of the time, I think, brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, serving the entire KC metro area. Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. If your business has any problems with their parking lot, know this: no commissions, in-house crews, free consultations. Every project comes with a written warranty. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Want to thank everybody who has called Gann Asphalt and Concrete, because we've had a lot of people. Make sure you tell them you heard about it here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. If we do want to mention today, here's what I think is a bigger issue. Right. And I didn't pull this sound. I pulled a number. Maybe I'll pull it for next time. MJ Melendez got picked off first down 4 runs. Okay. Mm-hmm. MJ Melendez, and like I said, maybe I'll play it later. Matt Quatrero basically caught himself from saying what sounded exactly like Ned Yost. Managers will say things when guys are going good. And MJ Melendez had hit a home run the night before. I can't remember what it was. And I'm sitting there recording it. And just like Ned Yost said about Eric Hosmer when he was on one of his hot streaks, he's like, well, his swing, he can get up. Well, there's a lot going on there, right? It was virtually the same quote from Matt Quatrero about MJ Melendez. So when he's hitting, we're all excited and we kind of let our guard down. You can hear him catch himself that he's got, he hits for more power. There's more swing and miss. He's, and then he caught himself, and you could tell he was going down that same road. To me, the bigger issue here that is Jordan Lyles is very soon going to be, if it's like this, going to be a sunk cost, and they're going to release him, and it'll be a bad mark. The bigger issue is MJ Melendez never going to be able to consistently hit the baseball? Bigger question is MJ Melendez going to kick the ball around the outfield? A bigger issue is MJ Melendez going to be asleep on the base paths when he's down 4 runs and get picked off? Which is a bigger issue is Matt Quatrero going to kick somebody's ass in that clubhouse at some point? Right? At some point, will there be you're not playing tomorrow because your head is up your rear end? And if it's up your rear end on the base paths, go take a day or 2 off and watch the game and get it figured out. Or dare I say, send him down to the minor leagues and think about it there. See if you can remember what the outs are and what's going on and what the score is. To me, that's a bigger one. Getting MJ Melendez right. And we both agree that bus may have already left town, because the getting it right is like trading him at his highest value or developing him into the best player possible. And it's quite possible that the most valuable he'll ever be was 2 years ago, and they didn't move on from him. But if he's going to get picked off, first base down 4, and if he's going to kick the ball around the outfield, that's a bigger problem because they clearly, you said it last week, when they take him from behind the dish, they're saying we can't miss on this guy. We have to have his bat. He is one of the pillars with which the future is founded on. He has to work out. And if he's going to just be handing outs away on the base paths, you start to think, what? Big picture is what? How many guys do you know that routinely make those kind of mistakes that go on to be the kind of players that you go, okay, we're going to build a franchise around?
Yeah, I mean, in the big picture, there's like MJ himself, there are a lot of moving parts to what you just said. And my optimistic perspective on MJ Melendez is baby steps. Where compared to where we were a month ago or 3.5 weeks ago, when he wasn't doing anything right, the first step was they had to get his bat right, because it didn't really matter how good or bad his defense was, what position he was playing, if he was going to continue to hit as badly as he was in mid-April. And we pointed out his batted ball data was really good. It looked like he was extremely unlucky, but we were getting extremely frustrated that the results did not correspond to how well he was supposedly hitting the ball. Well, since April 22nd, and this does not include today's game, but since April 22nd, over 19 games, he's hitting 271, 325, 486. That is the MJ Melendez I hoped we would see this year. And if he continues to hit like that, he will be a valuable player. He may be maddening, he may be frustrating, but there's something there's a major league player there. So that is the good news. And
is there a major league player that you can win a championship with, or is he Billy Butler?
I don't know. Well, I mean, Billy Butler, they got within one run of a championship. Like, can he start for a contender? Yes, but he might be the guy who always makes you frustrated because he could be better than he is. But I think if you hit that well, if you have an 800 OPS and can play a position, you're not a DH, you're probably got some value. I mean, Billy Butler was a DH.
Again, he doesn't have an 800 OPS. He did for a week.
Well, right? He's had for 3 weeks. He's had an 810 OPS.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
And with the schedule easing up, bottom feeding teams, cherry picking numbers, like
yes,
that.
I mean, this is selective endpoints. Absolutely.
That's. I mean, and so to me, that's why I bring him up. Is like that's the bigger issue, because MJ Melendez, this organization, by taking him out from behind the dish, by putting him in right field, is saying we have to have him. Because they have to acknowledge, I will grant you, J.J. Piccolo should be gone tomorrow. Tomorrow. If he does not understand the value, trade-wise, of MJ Melendez behind the dish versus in right field. Right? We watched that be squandered away with Whit Merrifield with the last regime. Conversations I've had, they're quite aware. They're quite aware of what the value is behind the plate. I will tell you that if this is John Sherman is giving them a 2-year run at it to finish off what was already started, but not giving them the ability to blow it up. If it's not all there, it should be blown up right now, because it is not there. It is not just around the corner. It is not one or two things falling into place. Right. And what scares me is MJ Melendez in right field. Are the returns right now? Somebody asked. I don't know. I haven't looked. I don't spend a lot of time looking at the defensive metrics because I think a lot of it is noise. But have you looked at him in right field? How is he looking defensively? Because my fear is he's more Billy Butler playing left field than he is Alex Gordon playing left field. Because we saw both of them.
That's a pretty enormous gap right there. Like he's somewhere in the middle. Like that's one thing I'm confidently can say.
Is he right in the middle?
I mean, he's the numbers last I looked, he was below average, but like not unplayable in right field. And for given that, remember last year he played left field and catched. This year is the first time he's actually playing right field consistently in his career, pro or minor league or major league. So I think I'm not convinced he cannot play right field. Let's put it that way.
Did Alex Gordon have a learning curve when he went to the outfield?
Well, he spent some time in the minor leagues. Playing left field, I think a little bit more than MJ Melendez. Not a lot. You're right. And Gordon did figure it out right away. Alex Gordon was a unique case.
Again, and I'm not anti MJ Melendez. I am at this point, until proven wrong, anti him running around in the outfield. But I would simply say this is a below average defensive right fielder needs to hit at what level to warrant being out there on a team that's going to win a World Series? And at what level on a team that frankly is going to do it on a budget that is 50%, 40%, 35% of what the Mets and the Padres and the Dodgers are running at there? See, I don't see it fitting together as the island of misfit toys, where it's like, yeah, the guy sucks in right field, but he can hit pretty good. But we have the best outfielder in baseball playing center field, and we have the best shortstop. Like, that's not how small market teams win. That's not what the Rays look like. So if he runs around out in the outfield, can't we already rule out superstar? Like we can get it. We're going to get into Bobby Witt in a minute, but
right. I mean, probably, but I mean, superstars like a really high. I'm not ruling out that he can't be a well above average player, a 4-win player. He's too young for me to rule that out. And you talk about, well, especially because, a team that has 40% the payroll of the big market teams or whatever. Well, from that perspective, until he hits arbitration, he's exactly what you want. There's nothing better than having a minimum wage player. You'll put up with some deficiencies in a player because he is not taking up the payroll. The problem, that's why you don't want to spend the $17 million on the Jordan Lyles of the world, because your payroll is so restricted. But $730,000 on a right fielder, and a starting everyday right fielder, that's perfect. Yes, he needs to feel better. He needs to hit like he is now. If he hits, like you say, what does he need to hit? He needs to have an 800 OPS. If he has an 800 OPS, and even if he's a bad defensive right fielder, he'll still be at least an average contributor and the kind of guy who can play on a championship team. But my point is, he has to continue to hit like this. If he doesn't, everything else is moot. If he does, then I'll start to get more frustrated about his base running mistakes and his lack of defense. But the reason I think MJ Melendez is hopefully a heading in the right direction, is hopefully a positive sign, is that he is just one guy in an offense that has turned things around a little bit in May. I mean, the Royals in the month of May are second in all of baseball.
Well, hang on. I want to stay I don't want to get off Melendez and go to that yet. I want to put this up here because A-Log 1234 said Phillies ran Schwarber and Castellanos in the outfield last year and made the World Series. They did, and that is absolutely entirely possible. The Phillies are also putting Bryce Harper in the middle again, arguably when he's healthy, the best center fielder. I know he got hurt in the end and everything that went into Bryce Harper, but the other players that are around the diamond, right? There's lots of money being spent in Philadelphia. But comparing MJ Melendez, that you're making my point. So are we here to say that MJ Melendez will hit 30 home runs at age 24, 26 at age 25, 38 at age 26, then have, what did he had? That was the COVID year. 11 home runs in 59 games. So, another roughly 30 home run season, 32 home runs at age 28, 25 at age, 32 at 20, 46 at age 29.
Right,
because if he's going to do that, then it's fine. He can be a butcher out there. That's making my point for me.
Right.
This is where we can.
But you're also you're basically, so you're blaming. You can't blame MJ Melendez because Bryce Harper isn't next to him in the outfield.
No. Your whole point on Lyles is about the thinking, right? The thinking of what they're doing, and that this is a sign that they don't think right. Is it not? So here's my point. I ask you, is MJ Melendez going to be a perennial 30 home run hitter? Is he going to hit 46 home runs? This is the thinking that has to happen. Is he going to be an above average outfielder?
And the only honest answer is I don't know. Yeah, and the Royals don't know either, so they need to find out. The thing with Jordan Lyles was we did know. That's my frustration. We knew.
Right.
We don't know here.
Okay.
So we need to find out.
And I got it. And Lyles blows. But this is the more important one.
Absolutely.
And they're in the get it right business. And this is the difference between the analytics seat of sitting there and throwing out numbers and here's what it is, and the general manager seat. This is the difference between talking theory and talking application, because they have to get MJ Melendez right. This is my point. It is not easy, but it's the important one. Jordan Lyles doesn't mean Richard to the future of this team. MJ Melendez does, and getting it right, whether that's because he can catch and put him back there, this is the one. So I ask you, is Melendez a multiple 30 home run hitter?
And the only honest answer I can give you is I don't know, which in a way is a good thing because I can't rule it out. All right. I'm pretty sure Kyle Isbell will never be hitting 30 home runs.
I guarantee he
Right.
won't.
Right.
I
But
guarantee he won't.
MJ
I also
Melendez,
guarantee you MJ Melendez is not going to be a good right fielder, which means the stick is going
I'm
to have to carry.
not certain about that. I think the skill set is there for him to be at least decent defensively. But the one thing, and you talk about, I don't know how we got around to this being about blaming the analyst seat. Like the Royals are 12-30. I don't think they're 12-30 because they put an analyst in charge of decision
Well, I
making.
mean, my point is the decisions that need to be made right now, the decisions that are important to winning a championship are not Jordan Lyles. They're MJ Melendez. They need to get that right.
They are exactly. They are the success or failure of an organization is based so much on decisions that are in the gray area that are not certain. The Tampa Bay Rays are not where they are now because they made decisions that were guaranteed to work. All they do is take 50-50 decisions and turn them into 55-45 decisions. And if you do that enough, it's just like playing blackjack and counting the cards and having the edge in the long run. And look how long it took for the Rays to get to this point. And they had a lull there in the middle of the last decade.
So let's bring this up. Let's because Benny says Hosmer and Moustakas were well below average 2 years before the 2014 run. Should we have traded them too since they sucked? The answer is no, not 2 years before when they sucked, but when they were the number two. If you traded Eric Hosmer when he was the number 2 prospect in baseball, would you have gotten more in return for him, albeit assuming that you're a competent organization that understands what talent is? God, yes. Yes, the Royals organization would have been significantly better because Eric Hosmer was at his peak slightly above average. Right? He was not a star. He was never a star, nor was Mike Moustakas. So the point is, Benny, you're missing the entire point. The point on MJ Melendez, Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas is if the best value that they will ever have is when they are in AAA, about to get to the big leagues. And that's the best they'll ever be because they're never going to be a real star. And you can get someone to pay you in prospect star prices. Yes, they should have been traded. Absolutely, they should have been traded. But once you get to 14, and that's where we're getting with Melendez.
Right. Well, and that's
the
thing.
Set sail. You've already blown
and that's
up
why on some level this argument is kind of a moot point because you and I kind of agree. Like we were talking about this when we started the podcast. The right time to trade out MJ Melendez was basically 14 months ago in spring training of last year when he was still a full-time catcher who had just led the minor leagues in home runs the year before, and you had franchise cornerstone Salvador Perez. You already knew who your catcher was. This is the thing we talk about. The thing about MJ Melendez now is I don't know the future. I don't know what's going to happen, but I did know with Jordan Lyles. I also knew Salvador Perez is catching for this team. So if you have a elite catching prospect, either you're going to have to trade Salvador Perez, which they've shown no inclination, or he was going to have to change positions, which was going to tank his value in a trade. Trade his value just period. So it's like if it was like, and I'm not blaming this on JJ because Dayton Moore was still in charge but this is the thing. A lot of this is the fault. That's why I'm blaming JJ for certain things, but JJ here is kind of a prisoner of what he was handed. But the blinders that Dayton Moore had to have in spring training of last year and throughout the season, just say, we have this great catching prospect. We have this great catcher. Just somehow magically, this is going to work. We're going to be the first team in Major League history to start 2 catchers. Like, it was just the level of denial there was very strong. And the fallout now is we don't know if MJ Melendez can catch. We don't know if he'll ever catch again. We don't know if he'll hit, right? But he might. The point is, yes, they probably should have traded him. But right now, for one thing, if you go to teams right now and be like, we want to get this guy off our hands, you're going to get 30 cents on the dollar.
Absolutely.
So you have and God, you're going to lose 100 games this year. Okay, so who cares? It doesn't matter if Jordan Lyles takes them out. It doesn't matter if MJ Melendez butchers 50 fly balls in right field this year. We got to figure out what he is. And I'll give the Royals credit. They announced 10 days ago or whatever. He's not catching for the time being. I think and I definitely like what I've seen from Freddie Fermin. I think he could be the perfect backup catcher. Salvador Perez just is a machine, just continues to hit. And the Royals have stayed the course with Bobby Witt, and we'll talk about him maybe in a moment here, making him the everyday shortstop. Even if it's not his best position, they stuck with him there every day, something they did not do last year when they kept moving him back and forth between third base and shortstop. And it may be paying dividends on a defensive front. So I want MJ Melendez playing right field every day for the rest of the season.
And I think you're going to get it. And we've gotten Bobby Witt. Let's move to that. Playing shortstop. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They're hiring for all positions. If you want to join one of Kansas City's fastest growing companies, whether it's a project manager, dump truck driver, operators, crew members, starting pay up to $30 per hour based upon experience. Pay time off, insurance. That's just a few of the benefits. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more information. How about it with Bobby Witt Jr.? Defensively, when I looked about a week or so ago, the numbers were a little bit above average. I think he was he 12th out of 30 shortstops. And one thing I looked at, which again, average would be 15, would be 15 and 16 would be the two in the middle. He has certainly improved at that spot. Has he improved enough there? Is he hitting enough to believe that this is, because it's a combination of the two, right? If you're incredible defensively, we can live it's such a premium defensive spot. You can live with less offense. If he's not going to get on base at a 300 clip, that's okay if he plays Gold Glove caliber defense. Likewise, if you're just average defensively, but man, we can pencil in a 30-50 season for you every year, or at least at your peak and a perennial 30 home run hitter, you can certainly live with average defense at shortstop. What are you thinking now?
I'm thinking I'm not sure, and that in itself represents, I think, a significant upgrade in Bobby Witt's sort of defensive projection at shortstop. Because, I mean, we've talked about how bad he was last year, right? 19 runs below average by one metric, by MLB's outs above average metric, which maybe the most accurate metric, he was like 10 runs below. And it was basically, which led to kind of a debate whether, is he so bad he's never, ever going to be a good shortstop, or is he bad but not so bad that he can't improve? We're 32 games into the season now? 42 games into the season. A quarter of the season's done. Mm-hmm. By the Fangraphs baseball reference method, defensive runs saved, he is basically zero, which means dead average.
Right.
Which is in itself completely, acceptable and a significant improvement. By outs above average, he has quietly moved up to +4, which is, I think, puts him tied with a bunch of guys for like 4th among major league shortstops. Now, here's the thing. That metric includes every play a shortstop makes, which include, when you think of shortstops, you obviously think of ground balls in the hole, ground balls up the middle. But it also includes those little flares into the outfield, which we have talked about on the show, Witt being absolutely exceptional, going back on fly balls into the short outfield. That's where he's used his speed to great success, which makes me wonder, and we've discussed this before, even if he's a decent shortstop, could he be a truly exceptional center fielder, which just happens to be a position the Royals could really fill, could really use a great defensive center fielder who can hit probably even more than a defensive shortstop that can hit, because they have options at shortstop. Nicky Lopez is a stopgap, Michael Garcia. If Kyle Isbell's your best option in center field, then you need a center fielder. So the question is, though, is the reason why his numbers are so good at shortstop just because of all those pop-ups that he's catching, and that actually, when it comes to the ground ball portion of the game, which is to me still the most important part, is he actually not that good? I cannot get a straight answer here. The best I can tell you, looking at Baseball Savant, they do break down a shortstop's defense by where the ball was hit. And I think they break it down as balls in, balls out, balls to the left, balls to the right. It does not specify whether they are grounders or pop-ups. But on balls hit back and forward, he is +5. And then on balls hit to the left and right, he is 0. My interpretation of that is that I think he's +3 on balls out. Those are going to be the flares. He's definitely, he's even though it's a small part of a shortstop's game, he's so good at it. Yesterday, he he made what would have been one of the best catches of his career. It popped out of his glove. It was literally in his glove, but it was a ball right to dead center field that he just got a great break, tremendous speed. He's really good at that. The balls to the left and to the right, those are the ground balls. He's basically average. If he's basically average at ground balls, then you know what? Just leave him at shortstop because, even though his bat's been frustrating, he still swings at too many pitches. He had a home run today, and I think a double. He's up to 15 extra base hits. An average defensive shortstop who can get you 60 extra base hits, even if his OBP isn't ideal, is still going to be a valuable player. He's on track for like a 2.5 win season. Last year, with his defense as bad as it was, he was only worth 1 win. So that's progress. It's another good sign, but not a great sign. I still think he needs. At this point, I'm honestly more worried about him at the plate than I am in the field. He's going to play shortstop the rest of the season. We can evaluate his defense then, but I really want to see him take a step forward with his bat. And he still swings at a few too many pitches out of the strike zone. His batted ball metrics are good. He's hitting the ball hard when he hits it, but he swings at too many pitches. If they can just work on that a little bit, I really think he could unlock something for him.
The thing that, if they were an established franchise, if they, if the Rays got a hold of him, I think they would have had him out in center field right away because they would have had other people to play shortstop. The Royals, and my fear is that he's getting the play at shortstop because that's what they think they need to do to sign him. And they're hell-bent on signing him more than they are figuring out how he fits best into the team.
Do you really think they can't even get Vinny Pasquantino signed? Like, do they really think they can get Bobby Witt signed? Like, start baby steps, guys.
Jeff Passan said there were conversations before he ever even got to the big leagues.
Right, but I worry that like MJ Melendez as a catcher, I worry that ship has sailed. I don't know. At this point, he's already a quarter of the way to free agency, and the team has made, at least a year ago he could believe that this team will be a contender soon. Now he has to know best case scenario they're not contending until the last 2 years of his contract. So
yeah, and
it's going to be tough.
That's the scary part to me. Is that this is yet another player that is much valued, much is invested in, and we're talking about, is going to play decent ball. I mean, how much different than, dare I say this, Adalberto Mondesi? I mean, healthy. He's been healthy.
I was going to say there's the health component there. There are
health
two
is a big
opposite
one.
ends of the spectrum, and that's huge.
But I mean, if what they do is 5 years or 6 years of Bobby Witt Jr. With a 289 on base, 295 on base, pretty good counting stats. And if he's a healthy Adalberto Mondesi, he is an asset to a ball club.
Right. I was going to say, I mean, if aside from the health is a huge issue, but honestly, as offensive players, the stat lines, very similar skill set. Like great extra base pop for shortstop,
Sure.
Tremendous speed, obviously, right? Like leading stolen base ability. Low OBP, but I mean, there's Adalberto Mondesi averaged like 60 games a year. Like Bobby Witt is already on pace to he'll pass. Let's put it this way: Bobby Witt will have played more games for the Royals than Adalberto Mondesi by this time next year if he doesn't get hurt. That's how little Adalberto played when
The question was asked about Drew Waters, and he is working on his rehab assignment.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but this year's purgatory, right? We mentioned last week John Sherman and Sam McDowell's, or maybe did he? Was it? Yeah, I was saying a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned that he called it an evaluation year, right? Okay, Drew Waters needs to get up and play center field, and let's as fast as they can, in correct medical time, like just don't bring him up tomorrow, but get him going, get his timing down, give him a spring training, and he's probably, I think, going to be down there for the 30. What is it? 20 days you get in the minors now?
I believe it's 20 for hitters and 30 for pitchers. Correct. So I mean, he's been back on playing for Omaha for about 5 days now. So we'll probably see him in the next 2 weeks. I mean, somehow they'll just have to part with Nate Eaton's 0.49 batting average. I think they can find a roster spot for Drew. And yeah, I mean, he's sort of been out of sight, out of mind. He is the one guy who could kind of surprise us when he comes up and be like, oh yeah, this guy is actually a part of the future. But at this point, I need to see it.
Yeah, we need it. We need to see it. And if that's what we do is we watch Drew Waters. If he takes the center field and he's a great center fielder, great. If he's just okay and the bat's just okay, then he's starting to look fourth outfielder-ish, right? Like if he's a great center fielder and he hits a little, then that's okay too, right? Like you can live with that. But if we keep getting these guys that are, pretty good hitter, average defender, then they got to get moved to another spot, right? Now the team, as we talked about, if your guy Michael Garcia is going to hit and is better at shortstop, it starts to look like it comes together more. If Drew Waters plays, and you're like, he's all right at center field, then Bobby Witt Jr. in center, Waters in left. Now at least you're getting a couple of guys that can go get it. You can shade over towards MJ Melendez. That outfield starts to look like it could be something, right? Have you got the guy who is kind of a center fielder playing left, a guy who can run like they say is the fastest man in baseball in center field? Doesn't that team start to look like it could?
I
Together?
still think I agree. I mean, I maintain that Bobby Witt would probably be more valuable to this team as a center fielder than a shortstop. Now, the reason for that has changed in the sense that I think my expectation from defensively at both positions has improved somewhat, which is to tribute to him and to the Royals for developing his defense. I mean, one of the big differences between him this year and last year, simply his error rate has dropped. Like we don't care about errors nearly as much as we used to for good reason, but he made, I think, 16 errors in like barely half a season at shortstop last year. I think he made like 2 errors this year. Like, those are plays not made. That's not as important as the plays that you don't even get to, the balls you don't, reach, but he's become a more reliable shortstop, and that's made him average. But if he could be an elite defensive center fielder, I still think that could be the position he's most likely to be a part of a championship, Royals team. But let me give you this sobering thought.
Okay.
What if the best case scenario for Bobby Witt is that he's actually the Royals? He's this generation's Zach Greinke. In that, best case scenario, he develops over the next 2 years into a true star, maybe superstar player. We still don't think the Royals are going to make the playoffs this year or next year, and maybe not even 2025, right? I said I expect by 2026 this team needs to contend, right? Well, going into 2026, he's going to be 2 years away from free agency. That's when they traded Zach Greinke, and that turned out to be one of the probably the single greatest thing Dayton Moore did for the did as a Royal, one of the 2 best trades in Royals history. Now the timing I feel is different in that they traded Zach Greinke because they had no expectation in the last 2 years of his contract that they would make the playoffs. Whereas if things go well, Bobby Witt will be moving. They'll be moving into playoff contention in those last 2 years. But like if he turns into an elite player over the next 2 years, you imagine the kind of prospect. If you're going to try and maximize his value, the time may be to trade him then with 2 years left, and you could get 3 or 4 top 100 prospects, to flesh out the rest of your roster. So that there is that scenario. Certainly, if the Royals do not make headwind toward being a contender in 2 years, then they may have no choice but to do that.
Yeah. All right. What do we think? By the way, I love the optimism there from Matt. They're just a 20-2 run away from getting right back into this thing, right? From getting right back into it. We'll see if it happens. All right. So, are you buying the offense overall?
I mean, their overall numbers, yes. Like in May, they are the second best offense in baseball in May. They're obviously, I don't think they're the second best offense overall. But in April, we were so frustrated because the numbers said they were better than they were. Like their batted ball luck was terrible. They were the worst offense in baseball, and or certainly in the American. I think next to last in the American League. And it made no sense with all these young hitters. Fortunately, I'll give the Royals credit for not panicking. And I said they should send Michael Massey down. And since I said that, like literally since the day I said that, he's hitting over 300 with like, a 400 OBP. Like he's actually drawing walks now. So overall, what are they 11th? I think they're 11th in the AL in runs scored. That's not a step forward, but at least it's not a big step backward.
Can I tell you I'm not buying it?
Okay.
They scored 10 runs against the Brewers in 3 games. I mean, it's
10 is. I mean, that sounds terrible, but like Corbin Burns, it's like Cy Young contender. 10. A bad team would score 3 runs in 3 games. 10 runs in 3 games is not terrible.
It's not great.
No, but it's what an average or slightly below average offense will do when in a 3-game series where they face a Cy Young winner.
So maybe it's just semantics that we're battling here, but I'm not like, what when you're what then what are you, what is your, it's not good enough is what I'm telling you.
Well,
No,
the
I'm not buying
offense
it.
as a whole, absolutely not good enough. But like, you take out Hunter Dozier, you take out Jackie Bradley Jr. I guess Nate Eaton is not long for this roster. Okay, he was not one of the core guys. I'm just looking for who are the core guys here, and we this is why Bobby Witt is so important. So why we spent so much time talking about MJ Melendez, because MJ Melendez is the guy. It's like right on the bubble. Is this guy a core guy? I don't know. I need to find out, but I cannot say with confidence he is. But Nick Pratto, who 6 weeks ago I was like, I think the ship may have sailed on Nick Pratto. He has been. I don't know. Like this, it's been really kind of fluky because he was hitting like 150 in AAA when they brought him up, but we talked about it at the time. His strikeout rate had dropped dramatically. He was clearly making changes at the plate. Then he comes up and he's hitting like 400 while striking out at a higher rate than he did last year. But over the last couple of weeks, his strikeout rate has come back down. He's got a lower strikeout rate this year in the majors than he did last year. And he's hit. His batted ball profile is very, very interesting. His line drive percentage is way up here. I got some numbers here. Last year, he had line drives on 18% of batted balls. This year, 38%. And that comes at the expense of fly balls. 41% last year, 16% this year. He's hitting a few more ground balls, but he's not. This is not Eric Hosmer we're talking about here. Like he's in a little more, but he's just taking the pop-ups, the high, the fly balls with a 55-degree angle that were just, cans of corn, and turning those into line drives. He's hitting last year, 30% of the balls he hit were up the middle. 46% of his batted balls are up the middle this year. Like this is a line drive profile from a guy whose strikeout rate is starting to drop and can still hit the ball out, with power. His average exit velocity has also gone up from 86 miles an hour last year to 88 this year. So Nick Pratto, to me, like if I'm looking for green shoots, Nick Pratto, I don't know, but if he's a solution, then suddenly you have Pasquantino, Witt, Pratto, Salvador Perez. That's 4 right there. Michael Massey, again, the last 2 weeks has gone from, okay, this isn't working out too. Maybe, I don't know. He's going to, be a good defensive second baseman, bat at the bottom of the lineup. Like, you're trying to find solutions here. If you can get 1 or 2 more, then suddenly you've got.
Well, you've got Massey, Garcia, and Waters hopefully soon. That answers as well.
The optimism we had about this team was that the offense was almost there. Now, look, the pitching staff is still a mess. So this is all relative, but at least then we can just focus on that. They need to find 2 more good hitters. It's very frustrating that Gavin Cross is, not the guy that Dayton Moore thought he was. I'll just put it like that, at least right now. And there are a bunch of guys in AAA who are interesting, but nobody's knocking on the door. Tyler Gentry, we are hoping might be a guy who could be in the outfield this year. Not happening for him. Nick Lofton, just blah. Okay. Right. They need somebody in the minor leagues to take a big step forward and hit. Maybe it's Peyton Wilson. I don't know, but somebody. But at least the core guys that were on the major league roster on opening day, plus Nick Pratto, are coming around. I feel much better about that core than I did a month ago.
Real quick, rapid fire on a couple things here. Bobby Witt Jr. 1,500 at bats. Is that how long you wait before you declare it?
Not me personally. The important thing is, 500 bats.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Not you personally? You wait longer, or
no? Like Dayton Moore would tell you, 1,500 and it's just a warm up.
Right.
But
are you ready to call it that he's just not going to be an on base?
No. I'm not. I think because the only thing he's missing right now is the plate discipline play. Like the pop is there, the speed is there, and his strikeout rate, which was a concern in the minors, is perfectly, mediocre. 21% for a power hitter. Perfectly fine. Okay. All he needs to do is stop chasing lower his chase rate like 5%. And I think he can take a step forward to be a 120 OPS guy, which makes him a 4-win player. Maybe not a superstar, but a star.
All right. So he's halfway to the 1,500 at bats. So something better start clicking here pretty soon. All right. And then you believe, are you ready to say Pratto at first base? Like one thing I like is, I'd like Pratto to play at first base as much as possible because I like the defense. And I think it gets a lot easier to see what you've got, and it gives more confidence to all the other infielders. I think the Pratto part is huge. I know they said very good things about him when I was asking folks about, hey, how about Pratto? The numbers are kind of down. They're like, listen, the numbers you gave were some of the things that they cited. They said,
which to their credit, they promoted him when he was hitting like 150, and it looked crazy by the raw numbers. They were looking at the metrics, and I give them credit for that.
A new phrase that I'm hearing a lot is swing decision.
Yeah,
right. They like his swing decision, and he was making good decisions on when to swing. You saw him work the count in this series against the Brewers. He didn't look overmatched to me.
Well, the last game they won against the White Sox with the walk-off bunt by Freddie Fermin, that rally started because Nick Pratto worked a 6-pitch walk in the bottom of the 9th inning to lead off the inning. You know, the hits get all the attention, but the walk is what scored the run. So, it's you. 40 years of being a Royals fan, never heard the concept of swing decision before because the Royals didn't care about that stuff. Now they do, and I give them credit that not only do they care, but it's actually paying off with Pratto.
It would be nice if you could feel like Pratto's at first, Witt's at short, or even if you're like, listen, he's going to play short, but he's going to center. It would be nice if you knew where you were going because it makes it a lot easier to try to figure out what you're shopping for at the trade deadline.
Right. Well, and the question here, of course, you say Nick Pratto great at first base, but he's actually playing some outfield, some left field, and I'm not 100% sure that's a bad idea because I don't want Pasquantino to be a full-time DH at this point in his career. Do I? Especially if they want to have Salvi play there a third of the time, and they don't have they need an entire outfield. We still have really no solution.
I do.
There is a left field. It's not like a better defender than Pratto.
I objected to the very essence at my core. The same reason I objected for MJ Melendez. Start trading somebody. Like to me, like if you want to jump, I'll jump some front office ass if we're going to just keep putting square pegs into round holes all around the diamond. I will say that this is not going to work if you keep taking guys that are non-traditional. At catcher to outfield is not a traditional move. We can find 2 or 3 guys that have done it ever. It's certainly becoming more commonplace. The Giants have got a guy that's doing it. I can't remember his name. He's on my fantasy team.
Was he an elite prospect?
Is it Camposano? No, that's
I just feel like it's the sort of thing you do with guys who are
he was
players.
I get a couple of my National League guys confused. One of them was at least a Keith Law top 60 prospect.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's the full-time catcher, if that's the guy's playing outfield in Sable, or is it Sable with the Giants? I got to look at it. I'm sorry, but I'm firing out. It's Dynasty football tag deadline night, so I've been looking at football.
The commenters are saying it's Blake Sable. So
Blake Sable. Okay, thank you. So it is out there, but like you can't keep having guys that are supposed to be great defensively at one spot, having them play some places. Develop a freaking outfielder. How about that? Make it moot. Have somebody come through this organization that can play the outfield. Who was the last outfielder that they drafted or signed in Latin America, came up and played for this club and played well every day? Rod Dice is the closest you can come to. 50th round draft pick. He's the closest you can come to. They have not pitching is not their only problem. They cannot develop outfielders.
And which is really sad for an organization that even at their worst, in the pre-Dayton Moore era. I mean, they got Johnny Damon, they had Carlos Beltran. Like, this is an organization with a proud history of developing outfielders, especially center fielders.
Yeah.
This team has had, great center fielders almost its entire existence. Amos Otis, the Willie Wilson. I mean, even Brian McRae for a couple of years, tremendous defensively. Damon, Beltran, Lorenzo Cain. I like Kyle Isbell as a fourth outfield type, and maybe he can play a little bit more, but the problem is they haven't developed anybody, and it's not for lack of trying.
Melendez and Pratto cannot be playing in the outfield. They absolutely cannot both be out there because it's one, just an indictment that they can't develop any other outfielders or identify them for any other team, or two, can't trade anybody because they're so terrified that somebody might be good because they don't know what the hell a great player is, right? Like the Rays, the big story they identified a Rosarena and went after a different guy when Rosarena was their target. Like that's one of the great stories of why the Rays are good. They identified a guy that the Cardinals weren't even as big on, were willing to get rid of him, went in after another guy, did the old, beautiful mind theory, go after the gal you don't really want to get the one, and got the deal they wanted. Right. Like those are the things that have to start happening.
And I mean, they gave up a good prospect. It was a pitcher, Matt Liberatore, who was I think the first round pick, like 2 picks before Brady Singer. But pitchers, you never know with pitchers, and Liberatore's career has taken some detours. I think he's finally getting back on track with the Cardinals. But like at the time, it was like, wow, the Rays are giving up prospects, a top prospect to get this like DH. And you're right, they evaluated other teams' talent correctly.
We also go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I mean, what you're saying, absolutely. The solution here is yes, make a trade. I think given the personnel on hand right now, I don't mind playing Pratto out there just because I need Pasquantino out there every day. The one thing, the single thing I am most convinced about the Royals roster is that Vinny Pasquantino is an everyday major league hitter. Like that the dude can just hit. Yes, I know he's been in a slump this past week. Right. He's I don't even think he struck out that much. He's just hitting up into a lot of outs. But
well, the question, like, are we even going to mention it? No, because I'm not worried about it.
Like, I'm not worried. Vinny Pasquantino can hit. I'm as sure about that as I am about anything with this team. And so he needs to be out there every day. And if Salvi's DHing, Pasquantino needs to play first. You have no choice but to play Pratto in the outfield. As a stopgap, that's fine. But yes, the solution here is readjust, like acknowledge the limitations of a major league roster. All right. You can hold your breath all you want. You can't start 2 catchers. So do something about it. Yes. You can't start 2 first basemen. You've developed potentially 2 really good first basemen. But, you can't play them both. If you're going to play one at DH, okay, then you can't DH Salvi. It's like acknowledge reality. That's what bothers me. And it's like, because the longer you wait to do that, the more you end up having to trade. When you do trade, you've lost all the leverage that you have. Hopefully, if Pratto hits well, then they have a really nice decision to make either this summer or next winter, which is we've got 2 really good hitters in Nick Pratto and Vinny Pasquantino. Come and get them, guys. Like that's a solution, right?
Yeah, and I want to point out, the guy put up who's 0 for 19 coming into today, and he did go 0 for again today, so 0 for 4 coming into today. In his 3 previous games, he was 0 for 11 with a walk. Today he was 0 for 4 with a walk, so he's 0 for 15 with 2 walks. So he's still got on base twice. I'd have to go back and look at the inning by inning. He went 3 for 5 with 2 runs and an RBI on May 10th.
But here's the thing: he's 0 for his last 15. Vinny Pasquantino with 2 walks.
It might be, but it theoretically could be as much as 0 for 17. But it's not.
Yeah, right. But the previous game he was 3 for 5. If he finished that game with 2 outs, whatever. But my point is, here's the thing: 0 for 15. How many strikeouts? 0.
Yeah,
he has not struck out since Tuesday.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think the question was, are you concerned? Are you going to mention it? No, we're not concerned, and that's why we're not mentioning it, because it's so far down the list of anything I would be worrying about right now. That
Vinny Pasquantino has struck out twice in the entire month of May.
Yeah,
like that's insane. Like he has 2 homers and 5 doubles, 6 walks, 2 strikeouts. No, I'm not worried about Vinny Pasquantino, who struck out twice in the entire month. He's going to be fine.
As is always the case, we leave things on the cutting room floor, but we will get to it next week. Our podcast, proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Now hiring for all positions. You get paid time off. You also get insurance, just to name a few. Gann Asphalt and Concrete serves the entire KC metro area. Nationally recognized, they do it all when it comes to parking lots. Don't let your parking lot be a mess. Doesn't have to be. Gann's been solving those problems since 1994. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. For the good doctor, Rany Jazayerli. 7 days to prep for who? Just give me, who should I be ready to mix it up?
Well, I mean, we haven't talked about Hunter Dozier. I'm sure I could find something to talk about with him.
All right. We'll get to Hunter Dozier next week. That is Dr. Rany Jazayerli, one of the founders of Baseball Prospectus. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City, saying thank you very much for joining us here on Kaufman Corner.